Why chaos in Eastern Europe is never bad news for Vladimir Putin. On Monday, NATO's Secretary-General warned Moscow against potential aggressive actions after Ukrainian officials estimated there were 90,000 Russian troops near the border and in the temporarily occupied territories, as well as in the Black Sea. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said last week that the US was concerned by reports of unusual Russian military activity and mentioned the possibility that Russia may be attempting to rehash its 2014 invasion of its neighbor. French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel called on Russia to adopt a posture of restraint because any attempt to undermine Ukraine's territorial integrity would have serious consequences. The questions that require answers are: 1. How immediately dangerous is the situation? 2. What can the Western alliance do, if anything, to dissuade Russia from further provocation? And 3. What does the Russian President Vladimir Putin actually want in private? European diplomats and officials answer these questions by saying they don't believe the situation is the same as in 2014, when Russian operatives invaded Ukraine and annexed the Black Sea Peninsula of Crimea.
Orja Lutsevic, a Ukrainian analyst at Chatham House, agrees. It's the best war you can fight without boots hitting the ground. Unlike 2014, this is not about territory, but about undermining Ukraine's persistent movement towards the West and telling the West that Russia has a legitimate presence in this region. However, those officials do fear that Putin has created something of a catch-22 that he is very happy to exploit. Putin knows that if he builds up troops, the West has to respond. That means statements like the above from senior US, French, German and EU officials. The rub is that statements and other measures have not historically forced Putin's hand. Russia has demonstrated many times that it is able to wait out sanctions, said Catherine Kluver-Ashbrook, director of the German Council on Foreign Relations. Putin knows that sanctions are difficult to sell to certain groups at home when they can indirectly impact German business or energy supplies in France because companies cannot work with Russian companies. The catch-22 is that Putin receives a legitimacy boost when these Western leaders are forced to talk with him in order to de-escalate tense situations. Every time someone like Merkel is forced to pick up the phone and talk to him about preventing a crisis, he becomes simultaneously the cause and solution to the problem. It makes him seem very powerful at home and elsewhere in Europe, said a senior EU diplomat. There is another situation unfolding in Europe that could allow Putin to play both foe and friend. The border between Belarus and Poland is playing witness to a migration crisis that has been lurching toward violent escalation. On Tuesday morning, tensions erupted when migrants trying to gain entry to Europe threw rocks at Polish border guards, who responded with water cannons. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has been accused of manufacturing the crisis by directing migrants from the Middle East and Asia to the border. A sudden influx to any country within the EU creates the real possibility of a political crisis and headache for Brussels. This type of crisis allows Putin to enjoy supporting Lukashenko and stoking the fire, while also playing peacekeeper. If Putin made it clear he wanted Lukashenko to stop, it is almost certain he would. It's not clear what Putin's long-term plan is for either crisis. It is, however, a safe bet that the West, looking disunited and impotent while its borders face being overrun, is deemed good news for the Russian president, and the crisis will get steady coverage on Russian state TV. And the West has looked impotent in the face of Russian aggression many times over the past decade. The West's diplomatic toolbox is depressingly empty when it comes to Russia, said global affairs analyst Michael Bociarty. He believes that the combination of American indifference, Europe's cognitive dissonance on what it wants from Russia, and Putin's relative inability to do any real harm to the more powerful Western nations have left Putin with the impression that he can essentially do what he wants and get nothing more than harsh words. Lots of Eastern European nations are now terrified that the US and its closest allies are just not interested in foreign affairs anymore, especially since the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Bociarty said, as serious as the situations in both Ukraine and Belarus are, it is entirely possible that they are easily explained as relatively weak leaders like Putin and Lukashenko flexing their muscles in parts of the world they know they can get away with it. Realistically, Putin simply is not a major threat to the West. The tragedy of that reality is that for those who live in his sphere of influence, A lack of pushback from the international community means that a man who despises playing by the rules has as good as absolute power over their lives. Whether that becomes a strong enough incentive for countries like the US, Germany, France and the UK to act, should the aggression get worse, is really anyone's guess.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe,